Morning all, Lee from Fry's Garage here. Something different today. It's a basic job, it really is, but I thought it'd be a perfect opportunity to teach the younger ones and some of the people that haven't done this particular procedure. What I'm talking about is how to remove metal parts that are interference fit. So I got a VY Commodore today, so the good old trusty VY, but they are independent rear. And the wheel bearings are shot. All right, so I thought this would be perfect time to show you how you do not smash your fingers, how you do not belt flanges and spline shafts and componentry and hardware and parts that are expensive. I'm going to show you how. Well, there's only one way to do this. All right, if you don't have the tools and you work for a boss, you need to ask him for the correct tools because it's going to save him in stuff-ups, in body damage, work cover, etc, etc. And if he still doesn't buy you the standard tools to do the jobs that are outside the range that you should be buying for yourself, which I've spent over 30 grand in tools over the years, but there's a limit to what I would call workshop tools. A puller kit to remove bearings, to remove flanges and components that are interference fit. They're a workshop item. They should be bought by the workshop. And if your boss doesn't see that, you should probably go and work for another boss. And I'm serious about that, because if he can't understand that your body is important and the components, customers' components are important, kind of tells me how they're thinking up here. Anyway, all that aside, I'm going to show you the right way. So what I do is I'll turn the phone around so you can sort of see what I'm doing, and we'll go from there. All right, hold tight. All right, so there we have it. Okay, independent rear. So many people have seen them. Okay, they changed to the late 90s, early 2000s. They became the common. Now, the bearings are different. All right. So instead of having what we call a taper roller, so a cup and cone style, they now run what's called a unitised bearing. And what I'll do is I'll get a new one out the packet after, and I'll show you how to do it. So we can see that I've had to take the drive shaft off, okay, because the inside drive hub that the shaft bolts to is on a spline shaft, which is the axle end, all right? So the actual axle, I'm not going to say that too many times, is part of the hub, okay? But obviously to change the bearing, we need to split the hub and the axle off, okay? So we can press the bearing out. Now, when I say about interference fit, what I'm saying is, maybe you can see in there, so you can see that we have the hub, and then right in there, we have the end of the shaft, which is the axle, okay? So what I need to do is I need to take this flange off, and people belt the crap out of the end of the axle with big bars, and they're banging inside here with 10-pound hammers, and guess what happens, guys? We either splay the end or peen over the end of the thread, which makes it useless and damaged and probably have to get another axle. We either hit the ends of a flange, we'll belt the side of the shocker, or we'll smash our finger and pull blood. All right, not ideal, okay? So for the sake of doing it so quick and easy without damage to any component, all right, I say this with faith, no damage to any component, we use a puller. It's as simple as that, guys. It really is. There's so many people just don't do it. Anyway, so what I'm going to do is, when we have a flange in this case that is over a splined axle, in this case, it's an interference fit. So really, we could try and wind the puller and pull the hub off the spline, but there's an easier way to make it come to fruition a bit easier. And what's that, you reckon? What do we need to do to a metal component to make it expand so that whatever's on the inside of it falls out easier? We use heat. There we go. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my gas torch. All right. So you don't need an oxy unless you're really using oxy cutting and oxy every day. You only need one of these bad boys. Okay. So I got this one from Bunnings because it was quick and easy at the time. and I've been using it ever since. It's actually lasted quite a long time. They're 40 bucks, you know. Look, the gas quality isn't great, because if I turn the bottle on its side a little bit, it sort of peters out, and it was a full bottle, so it's not as if it's going empty. Anyway, all that aside, you can choose your own flame. Most of you at a good workshop, okay? So then what we're going to do is I'm going to heat up as even as I can the outside of this spinning flange, all right, this radial flange, so that it expands. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some pressure. I'm going to wind the screw in for the hydraulic puller, so it's already got some pulling force. And once the expansion is at a set position or a set temperature, it's going to let go. And then what I'll do is I'm going to start pushing that in, or turning it in as quick as I can, right? Well, I'll put a little bit of heat on there and keep it hot. Don't get it too hot. When you get metal to purple, it's too hot, all right? All we're doing is trying to expand it. And what I do is I try and keep around a temperature between 70 to 90 degrees. That is plenty, okay? Any more than that and things potentially may buckle. So what I'll do is I'm going to heat that, I'm going to pull it off and show you that I did the job, and we'll come back. Bear with. Alright, well, that literally took me, I reckon, 4 minutes. So what I did is I used a butane torch and I heated up around the housing here, and it expanded once it got to a certain temperature, and there's enough to make the interference fit of the axle. So you see the splines there, alright, see those splines there? Alright, that's what it's tied on. Most of you mechanics would have seen that already. Alright, pretty basic on everything these days. Alright, from the drive shaft component, drive line, etc, etc. Okay, something where a shaft has got to spin a flange or similar, you're going to get it. Alright, so can you just imagine the carnage that was created when people hit the end of the threaded part? In this case it's an axle basically, but we're talking a main shaft of the gearbox, transmission parts, right? It will just absolutely splay the end there. Alright, not ideal. And you know what, this job, if you don't think about it, could potentially take 2 hours once you stuff around, smash your end of the nail, break your knuckle, whatever, right, and you still haven't got it off. Whereas like I said, mate, I used a puller and I heated it, and let's cap that at 5 minutes. Alright, how good's that? Okay, that's how it needs to be done. Anyway, so then the unitised bearing is a double row basically, alright, and it's parallel. It's just a parallel bearing. Looks like a tube with some needle rollers. Well, in this case we've got ball bearings, okay? A lot of them are needle rollers, light duty. So what happens is, see that there? That's your mini axle, okay? That's what we call it, a standard independent rear axle. So to pop that out, what I did is I just got a soft drift, so a little brass drift on the end of that, a tube drift, so it goes over that diameter of that threaded end. I didn't hit the end, I had a tube basically that went over and sat on that inner edge there. So just on that step there, okay? So it comes out nice and neat, and a couple taps, and look at that, guys and girls. Just like that, easy as 5 minutes. So what we'll do now is I'm going to take a circlip, and then I'm not sure how tight this bearing race is in the hub, okay, the independent hub. I may have to set up a puller to extract it. I may be able to knock it from the rear out, we'll see. I'm not going to do it hard. If I've got to swing a hammer more than 4 times too hard and it's not moving, something this size, we need to rethink, we need to think outside the square, all right? It's called working smarter, not harder, all right? So I'll set it up, we'll see what we're doing, we'll get back. All right, well, that was not too bad, all right? So there we go, unitised bearing, all right? A lot of what we call roller bearing, as in ball bearing, and then the other one's just a needle roller, and they go the full length basically. Some of them have twins, so they have needle rollers on this end, and then there's a spacer, and then some on the other side to share the load. All right, so we just popped out of there. It wasn't too tight. I have had in the past these that are quite tight. Remember how I said if I can't move it within 4 decent whacks on the back, other side in this case, then I need to look outside the box for something else to do it. All right, now generally, if you put some heat along here with the butane torch or an oxy set, no more than sort of 80 degrees, it will open up enough for this to pretty much fall out. All right, and this is how we're going to install the new one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the new one and I'm going to put this in the freezer. Whenever I put new bearings or something that's got to go into a hole that is an interference fit, okay, I freeze it. All right, so in this case we just a minus is okay. If we have a really tight interference fit like an engine piston liner in a block, then we use dry ice, okay, because that really lowers the temperature and really shrinks it to a specification that allows you to insert without doing damage. All right, so just back to the bench. So you can see here the inner race is missing off this end, and that's because simply it's on the axle. Can you see it there? All right, so that's that piece there, and you can see how worn it is. See all those funny marks along there? Well, that's where the little balls. All right, that's where the little balls run around, and it's actually quite notchy, which means it's worn. Okay, now again, if I were to remove this ring from the axle, what do I need to do? There's not much room for a puller, so I've got two options here, and the one that I like, which basically works 90% of the time, whether I'm doing it on a small car axle or whether I'm trying to get an inner race off a big Caterpillar dump truck, it doesn't matter. All right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this upside down in the vise, right, so that this ring, the inner race of the bearing, okay, is under its own weight with gravity. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my gas torch and I'm going to heat it up. All right, I'm going to heat it evenly all the way around. Oops, nearly copped it in the head. All right, I'm going to heat it up all the way around, and what will happen is this ring will expand. It'll expand to the point where the inside diameter is going to be a 1/15 bigger than the actual shaft. All right, the shaft diameter, which is going to be enough for it to fall under its own weight, and it should fall all the way off onto the bench. Okay, I will record it, and hopefully it does exactly what I said. Otherwise it's going to be in the 10% range that stuffs me around. I don't think it will. Okay, so we'll see what happens and we'll get back to the next point. Get it nice and even, nice and hot all the way around, and obviously with the flame you want the tip of the blue cone to be at the point of contact. That is the hottest part. So because this is round, we want to put the heat all the way around it. Take a couple minutes. I don't like putting too much heat, which you won't get out of these butane torches. You will out of an oxyacetylene kit, because what can happen is you can really superheat quickly and it will distort the ring and it will twist, and then it just locks onto the shaft anyway, so it's pretty much deemed useless. So nice gentle heat. We want to expand that ring nice and even all the way around. Yes, my bench is dirty, please don't look at it. I haven't had much time to clean it up. I used to be very particular with that, but borrow a tool, put it back, borrow a tool, put it back, make some rubbish, put in the bin. Well, sometimes Lee's sort of been forgetting that lately. That's okay. As long as I do the housekeeping once a week, but I'll never get to a mess where it's just unhealthy and a hazard. moved. The phone went dead, so I had to bloody charge it up quick. I had to put in probably another sort of 3 minutes of heat before it broke the seal. See, that's what I call breaking the seal. This one's a little bit tighter. I think the inner ring is just fatigued, so it might just be a little bit twisted on there. So what I'll do is we'll just warm it up a little bit more. It's sitting at about 60 degrees at the moment. If I tap this down, it should come pretty simple, I think. Look. Yeah, I think I'm going to have to tap it. But that's alright. At least we don't have to cut it and wreck everything else. Grind it, oxy wheel it, whatever people do these days. Alright, we've all seen it. You know what, I did it when I was younger. It's how you live and learn. You get better, and then you rely on older people like me to make you better again. And I rely on you to tell me different tricks, because that's what we need to do. So I reckon that's enough. If I go any more, it might be too much, so I'll just turn it off. Let's see what happens. Is it going to come off? Just get the bigger bar. I reckon if I Alright, back. Couple of taps, it was off. I haven't got my tripod, so I couldn't hold and hit at the same time. Generally you don't need to do it, but basically what I did is I got this ring to about 70 degrees and it has opened up. Alright, so it's allowed me to come in from the side at the top and just tap on the edge where it did stop halfway, get behind it, and away she is. So look, so that let's call that 6 minutes. Okay, so I'm going to clean up the landing, ready for the new bearing. We'll put this in the bin. I'm going to clean up the bearing landing on the car side. All right, so I'll clean up in there, get rid of all the rust and all the shit, polish it up with a wheel, and then to install these, I'm going to be putting a bit of heat around this whole landing tube here to about 70 degrees. And while that's been happening, the new bearing would have been in the freezer. Then what I'm going to have to do is put that straight into there. Alright, so you've got this expanded, you've got this shrunk. So guess what? It's going to be quite simple to put that in. Okay, so we'll do all that, come back, and we'll go from there. Hang tight. Alright, so I did what I said. So what I did is I heated up this bearing landing, okay, so the hub itself, to about 75 degrees. And I took the new bearing, straight out of the freezer, which was in there for about an hour. And it literally fell in, guys. Okay, you gotta remember I had to heat it out. There was, you know, some interference, which is what there should be. We don't want it spinning and falling out. But it literally, as it should, just all the way in with my hand. And what I did is I just knocked it in with a round aluminium plate just to seat it, so it went all the way in, and then I could proceed to put this circlip on. Alright, so instead of busting your balls, using hammers, potentially hurting your fingers, your nails, hitting components, damaging hardware, we do this the easy way, guys. Alright, guys and girls. So whenever you want to put something in a hole, heat up the hole and shrink the component you're putting in the hole. Take that whichever way you like. It works for me, all right? Always has, all right? Make the thing smaller, make the hole bigger. Happy days. When it's in there, it'll heat up, expand out, and you have an undamaged boss, and you have not fatigued or hit or damaged any component, all right? So what I'll do is I'll do the other side, okay? And then what I'm doing is I'm just gonna put it all together. I'm not gonna do a video on that because there's no need. I'm just reversing what I did, okay? Alright, you guys take care, and I'll do another little handy hint video, alright? So remember, if you need to put something inside a hole, you heat up the hole and you shrink the component, alright? If we were doing it the reverse, so remember, if we needed to take the inner bearing race off the shaft, we reverse it. So we heat the bearing ring, expands and comes off the shaft. Obviously we can't cool the shaft because it's already on there. Alright, so we heat the ring for it to expand to a diameter that's 1/1000th of an inch to 2/1000ths of an inch bigger, because that's how far it will get. Most components will get that far. And then she will just fall off. Or you have to tap it to assist it, like I had to do with this one, alright? But we're not grinding, we're not cutting, we're not using a disc to cut through the bearing, we're not potentially cutting into this. You know, we're avoiding all the silly stuff, guys and girls, alright? So, anyway, be good, and I'll talk to you soon. Cheerio.